Well, you had some antagonists through the whole process.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you Google Casey Martin, you're going to see some pretty vehement reactions to the decision. And he's ruining professional sports. It's going to open the floodgates. This is not about...
really did.
I mean, there was... Yeah. I mean, really. I mean, you can pick up some unbelievable things. And what I think your mom mentioned, a couple of sports writers in particular that were down in the Carolinas and really vocal. I think it was even a father and son team who really had come out strongly and written strongly against not just the issue, but almost taking it to a personal level. Yeah. Tell us kind of how that evolved, and didn't they kind of, wasn't there a little shift in the end?
There might have been. I really didn't read a lot of it. There were a few comments I read. I remember reading a few comments from tour players, and I was just like, man, I can't believe he'd say that. So I really didn't like interacting with guys knowing they just kind of threw me under the bus. And so I really just put a lot of it to the side and just didn't want to even know, because I didn't want to try to treat someone differently because of some situation, even though you'd like to get them behind the woodshed a little bit. But
wasn't it hard with like Nicholas and Palmer and some of the guys that...
Surprisingly, it was, but not as... I kind of like the competitive aspect of things, and so when the top guys like Palmer and Nicholas and a lot of the media had come out against me, kind of fires you up a little bit. It kind of gets you in the corner and you want to fight, and I kind of like that. I think I thrived on that a little bit, so it didn't bother me that much. Another funny story is like I used to grow up listening to Rush Limbaugh and all that, and then I'd listen to him and he just totally destroyed me. I'm like, all right, this is interesting. And then you get on like, actually, what's the guy, the other Fox guy,
Bill O'Reilly.
O'Reilly. He was actually for me, but he was a total jerk. Excuse me. Not a nice guy. And so when I was back there, just going, this is a scam. So I kind of had my whole kind of perspective on a lot of these things being on the inside kind of changed, and so I didn't read a lot of this stuff. And if I did know someone came out against me, I kind of embraced that to just from the competitive side of wanting to take them down somehow. So
well, first of all, in knowing you now, it's always, anybody with a disability, anybody with a challenge in life, it's always amazing to me that they don't become incredibly cynical. When they don't, a lot do. We're going through some tough times right now. It's hard not to be cynical. It's hard not to be cynical at Wall Street. It's hard not to be, with all especially the personal things that are flying at you. And you've been pretty open about your faith. You've been pretty open about the whole God thing. Mm-hmm. And I want to get your thoughts on how has it been for you? Obviously, there's a sense that God has healed and can heal. It's not that He certainly can't heal. Mm-hmm. There's two positions on that, but obviously He hasn't to this point healed your leg. How does that even flow? Is there a cynicism towards the? Have you struggled with that? Kind of take us through some of that. I know you're still in process, probably.
Right, no doubt. As said, I am a Christian. Became a Christian at a young age. Accepted Christ into my life when I was probably 6 or 7 years old. Did it all the time just to make sure. And and as I grew up in high school, was not the most important thing in my life. I was really involved in other things, golf, obviously, school, and just I'd sat in the back of church. I went with my family, but it wasn't, I prayed at night, but I really wasn't my focus in life. And but God was awesomely gracious to me, because you'd think God, if you weren't doing the right thing, He'd get mad at you, but total opposite. My life was just totally blessed. I got straight A's, got to go to Stanford, kick tail on the golf course. Everything was going well, even though my life wasn't necessarily reflecting what I said I believed as I was a professing Christian. What happened to my faith in college, something interesting happened. Obviously, I grew up with a disability, and I prayed every night before I went to bed, Lord, heal my leg, heal my leg, heal my leg, which He never did. And I wasn't bitter about it, but at the same time, it's in the back of your mind, like, Jesus is healing a lot of guys, and I'm kind of praying, and it's not being healed. So it was kind of somewhere back there. And I had a girlfriend in college, my last one, and that's a joke.
That's a joke.
And she pointed out, she's a very strong Christian, she pointed out a few verses in the Bible, and one was John chapter 9. And John chapter 9 is basically Jesus and His disciples are walking along, and they see this man who was born blind. And the disciples asked Jesus, why was this man born blind? Did he sin? Did his parents sin? What happened? And Jesus said, he didn't sin, or his parents didn't sin, but this happened so that the work of God would be displayed in his life. And Jesus went on to open this man's eyes. And I think my eyes were opened that day in the sense that, I didn't necessarily do anything to get a bad leg. My parents didn't do anything wrong for it to happen. But somehow God was going to work in this situation. He would be glorified through my leg. And I remember just having a peace about that and just giving that to the Lord. Like, Lord, you've created me. I give you my life and my leg, and do with it what you want. That was probably my sophomore year in college. And that's when my faith really started to grow. I was in a fraternity in school. I was going to church, but then I was going to Kegers later on. Saturday night, I'd be going to Kegers, and then I'd go to church in the Sunday morning. So I knew there was a tension in my life, like, maybe I should, maybe walk at just there's a tension of just being a carnal Christian. And so midway through college, the Lord just really got a hold of my life. I was living in a fraternity. There was crazy stuff going on, and yet somehow my life was totally plucked out just by God's grace. And my heart just totally changed towards the Lord, and I started seeking Him hardcore, and I was just, like I said, just drawn out in this place that was, total debauchery in a lot of ways, and yet here my life was being purified in a lot of ways too. And so had a lot of partly the reason is I had a lot of great Christian friends that were in the Bible study, football players, guys like Steve Stenstrom, Justin Armour, some guys that played in the league, really great guys, and I became roommates with those guys, and my faith really started to grow as I got out of a bad situation and into a situation where I could really grow, and so I really got to see God's plan kind of unfold for my life, that, He had His hand on my life, and He had blessed it, and even though my leg was a bad deal, He was going to use it somehow, and looking back now, at the time, in college, if someone said, yeah, you'd play the tour and you'd do it in a golf cart and you'd be a media sensation or media circus, and I would have been like, there's no way. It didn't even cross my mind. Sure. And yet, looking back now, you could see that God had something in store, that He had given me a platform that's very unique from anyone else. And so I'm really grateful for that. The challenge came, though, is, like I said, I'm a competitive person, and I wanted to do well. And those first few years where I had been on my first year where I'd been on the tour and was dealing with all this pressure, and I was blessed in a lot of ways, but I was also dealing with a lot, And I thought when I finally made the tour, I was like, oh yeah, finally, I've made it, and my game never felt better. And I really thought, I got a cart, I got the game, I'm going. And it went the other way. And so I remember that frustration of, Lord, why did I go through all this? Why have I had to deal with all this stuff, and all of a sudden my golf game, I can't make a cut. And so that was a big time frustration for me. And I'd like to say that I know exactly why, but I don't. And it still kind of makes me sad because, as many of you know now, I'm now the golf. I stopped playing in 2005, and I'm the golf coach at the University of Oregon, which is an awesome situation for me because I grew up there, I live there, I love the Ducks, and now I get to invest what I've learned in golf and invest it in kids and try to build a great program at Oregon that is a pretty tough place to build a golf program. And so I'm excited, I love it, but at the same time, it's probably my second option. My heart would love to be out there as I watch. I just know I'm so much better than Tiger, and I just wish I could go out there. It's not that, but I would love that challenge of being out there. I mean, obviously, financially, there's so many great things about it that it really broke my heart. And I'd love to say it's because I was going to be the golf coach, and God led me down this direction, which He has, but it's not really like that. I still grapple with it. It's still something that makes me sad at times, but at the same time, I have a peace about it, and I've given my life to Jesus, and I'm just trusting Him, and just anxious to see what He does, but it's not without its trials for sure.
Yeah.